What's going on, everybody? Brad Cohen, your go-to real estate resource here in Harrisonburg, Harmon Realty. Another real estate video for you today. This is actually part one of a two-part video series that I'm going to do about buying student housing in Harrisonburg. Here's what you need to know about student housing. Part one. This is all about student housing as an investment as a whole. Part two, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Harrisonburg specific stuff. So, as a local realtor here in a college town, JMU, big university, of course we've also got EMU and Bridgewater in the area, I get a lot of calls from people who are thinking about buying investment property and renting it to students. Whether you are a JMU parent that wants to buy a property for your son or daughter to live in while at JMU, or you're an out-of-town investor that's just looking for cash flow, or you're a curious JMU alumni who went to school here and then you're thinking about potentially buying some real estate to rent to students, these tips are for you. So, on paper, buying student housing looks like a great investment. The upside is really the cash flow. When you're buying student housing, most often you're going to be renting by the bedroom, and so that allows you to capitalize on a much higher rent per building than you would with a traditional investment property that you just rent the whole building to somebody. Being able to rent by the door allows you to charge more for the market rent. Student housing typically cash flows very well on a month-to-month basis. Here locally, you're typically seeing rents per bedroom in the $450 to $600 range. So if you multiply that out, that means that you could be looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000 a year in gross rents. And you go, wow, that's a lot of cash. Students are really rough on property. Let me tell you, having worked in student housing in the past, I was astounded at what students were capable of doing. I'm even astounded looking back on it at what I was capable of doing as a student living in student housing. So, bear in mind that students are typically very rough on properties, and so your maintenance and your cost of upkeeping the property and turning the property over is going to be much higher. I typically tell my investors that you're going to want to have at least a full month's rent dedicated to nothing but reserves for maintenance and upkeep and turnover. Expect that at every time you have a lease turnover, whether it's just one bedroom or it's your whole lease turn, you're going to need to do a full paint job. You're going to need to do a deep cleaning. You may potentially need to replace all the carpets or some or all of the flooring. So make sure you have those reserves in place. There are ways that you can mitigate that risk by collecting higher security deposits or charging cleaning fees or some other creative solution that you may be able to come up with, or also making sure that your lease covers those things. But just bear in mind that know and expect it's going to be a lot of turnover and it's a lot of work as a result. And collecting from students is very, very challenging. Finally, I really recommend hiring a property manager if you are going to be renting out to students. The headaches of dealing with potentially 4 different students with 4 different parents or guarantors on the lease, and separate leases versus joint leases, and also knowing when the prime leasing season is and the competition associated with it is something to be left up to the professionals. Pay them the 7 to 10%, whatever they charge you, whatever you negotiate for that, it will pay off tenfold for you in terms of the headaches that you will have to deal with. By the way, did you know that most students in this area are signing leases the fall semester for the following school year? They're signing leases 9 months before they're ever even thinking about moving into the property. If you miss that majority of the leasing season, then you run the risk of a high vacancy. So trust that a property manager and a professional who does this full-time in the industry can be able to take care of that property for you and will put you in the best position for success with renting to students. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 2 where I dive into a couple more very specific nuances for Harrisonburg investment property and student housing. Talk to you soon. Brad Cohen, your go-to real estate resource in Harrisonburg.